Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Vibe Fashion's YouTube channel. My name is Eunice. Thank you for clicking on this video. If this is your first time on my channel, please tap on the subscribe button to subscribe. And also make sure you put on your notification bell so you get notified every time I post a new video. And if you're a returning viewer that is yet to subscribe to my channel, please also tap on the subscribe button to subscribe and also make sure you put on your notification bell so you get notified once I upload a new video. Subscription is free. You are not paying for subscription. It's absolutely free. So it's just your way of supporting my channel. I hope we understand. Thank you. So in this video, we're going to be learning how to make this beautiful bustier gown with raglan sleeve. This gown has two sleeves. It has a raglan sleeve and a cold shoulder sleeve. And it also has a mandarin collar at the neck area. And it is a mermaid gown. This is what it looks like at the back. It's really beautiful and very easy to make. I hope this is something you are interested in learning. Kindly stay tuned while we get right into the video. Thank you. So these are the materials we're going to be using for this project, and this is a lace fabric. I have 3 yards here, and this is doll face satin. I'll be using this to line the lace, and I also have 3 yards. And here is my chantilly lace. I just have 1 yard here. I'll be using this for the sleeve, and this is my hasty. I'll be ironing it to the satin to give the fabric balance. And then this is my wadding, which is known as breast pad. I'll be using it to pad the bust area. And then here I have raglan boning. This is a sewable boning. I'll be adding it to the back so that because the back is going to be laced. So I'll be adding this to the back to help it, to give it structure, and also to the joining lines of the bustier. So right now we're going to our drafting, and I'll be drafting on my pattern paper. The first thing I'm going to do is to draw the shoulder line, which is the starting line. And then next I'm going to draw the front border line. This front border line is optional. You can start from the starting point of your paper, but if you don't want to, you can draw your line like I did. Okay. Next, I'll mark the bust point. So from the shoulder line, I'm going to come down to mark the bust point, which is shoulder to nipple point, and that's 11 inches. I'm confirming my 11 inches so that I can have a straight line. Then next, I'm going to mark the under bust point, which is 14 inches. That's from shoulder to under bust. Then next, I'll mark from shoulder to half length, which is as this the same thing as the waistline. Okay, that's the upper waistline, and that's that. So I'll go ahead and straighten my lines. Okay, so now you can see we have the bust line, the under bust line, and the waistline. So the next thing I'm going to do now, on the shoulder line, I'm going to mark 3 inches, placing my tape from the center front. Then next I'll mark half of the shoulder measurement, and half of the shoulder measurement is 8.5. From this 8.5, I'll go down by 1 inch. This is to create the shoulder slant. And then I'll connect it to the 3 inches mark here I have on the shoulder line. So right now we now have the shoulder slant. Next, I'm going to go ahead and enter the armhole measurement. And the armhole measurement I'm working with is 7.8. So I'll mark 7.8, placing my tape from the shoulder slant. So here's my 7.8. So where I mark the 7.8, I'm going to reconfirm the shoulder measurement, which is 8.5. This is for me to have a straight line because I'll be connecting it to the shoulder line. I'll bring in my straight ruler and connect the points like this. So now we have the armhole line, you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and square out this line. Where my 7.8 ends, that's where the chest line is, which is as good as it's the same thing as the armhole line. So I'm just going to square it out this way. And I'll extend the line to the center front, just like this. So now this is the chest line, okay? So I'll label it chest line, bust line, under bust line, and then the waist line. Haven't done that. The next thing now I'm going to do is to enter the nipple to nipple measurement. Remember that we're drafting half of the front. So everything I'm doing, I'm going to be entering half of the front measurement here. Okay. So half of the nipple to nipple measurement is 4 inches because the nipple to nipple is 8. So half of it is 4. So I'll mark 4 inches on the bust line. I'll repeat the same thing on the under bust line and then also on the waistline. So I'll bring in my ruler and connect the points with a straight line. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and mark 1 inch on this side and repeat 1 inch on the center side. I'll come to the underbust line, mark 1 inch and then mark 1 inch on the other side. I'll use my straight ruler to connect it. So this 1 inch I took on both sides of the dart line, that's of the nipple to nipple line, is only on the underbust and on the waistline. I didn't touch the bust line. So now I'm going to come down on the bust line by half of an inch. This is for me to connect the dart to the bust line. Okay, so I came down by half of an inch. So I'll use my curved ruler to connect it just like this. You want to make sure you're placing your curve correctly. You see, so I'm just going to connect it this way also. Okay, so now we have it. So we have done our dart intake for the under bust and as well as the waistline. So I also want to do my dart intake for the over bust. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and draw the front armhole first. So I'll get the midpoint of the front armhole by folding my tape into 2 like this at that point. And then here I have the midpoint. I'll go in by 3/4 of an inch. And then I'll mark with a slanted line that's going to be straight and then connect to the shoulder like this. And then I'll curve the armhole to meet the chest line. But on this chest line, I'm going to enter 1/4 of the bust measurement. That's where the armhole curve will stop, okay? 1/4 of the bust measurement. And then I'll curve the armhole to meet that point. Take note of the way I'm placing my curve. You want to make sure you place it correctly. So now I have the front armhole. Okay, so I'm going to come here now and mark a neck width of 2.5 inches. I'm going to have a collar on this neckline. So I don't want it to be wide. I want the collar to sit really nice. So I'm using 2.5 inches. So I'll be using a neck width of 2.5 inches and the neck depth of 3 inches. So I'm going to mark 2.5 inches on the shoulder line. And then I'll come down with a neck depth of 3 inches. Okay, that's it. So I'll use my armhole curve to connect the points like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is to get the shoulder darts because we'll be using the shoulder dart line to tighten the overbust. So I'm going to measure what I have here from the neck width to the shoulder tip, placing my tape like this. I have 6 inches. I'll get the midpoint, which is 3 inches. I'm going to bring in my straight ruler and connect from these 3 inches to the bust point line. That's on the nipple to nipple line, the bust point line, right? Okay. So I haven't marked to this point now. Now the next thing I want to do is to get the over bust line. So to get the over bust line, the distance I have from the bust point to the under bust point gives you your over bust line also. This is what I mean. From shoulder to bust point is 11 inches and then to under bust is 14 inches. So the difference is 3 inches. So that 3 inches, I'm going to place that 3 inches from the bust point now. That's above it right now so that I can get the over bust line. So which is that 3 inches. So I'm going up by 3 inches from the bust point line to get the over bust line. So now here we are. So we now have our over bust line. Next, I'm going to do a dart intake of 1/2 inch on both sides of the shoulder line that I have here now. So I'm going to take 1/2 inch on this side. That's on the center front side, 1/2 inch. Okay, and then I'll repeat the same thing on this other side, on the side, also half inch. So now I have tightened the over bust. I hope we get it. So I'm going to connect it to the bust point. You don't want to use the very curvy part of your ruler. You can see the side I'm using. So you don't want this to be too curvy. Okay. So I'm just going to connect this one also. So I've done my dart intake now for the over bust. That's that. So the next thing now I'm going to do now is to create the raglan sleeve. Okay, to achieve the raglan sleeve, I'm going to measure from the neck, from the neckline here, that's from this in the neck width here. I'm going to come down by 2 inches, placing my tape from the shoulder line on the neckline. I'll come down by 2 inches. So this 2 inches mark, I want to connect it to the armhole. That's to the armhole curve there, to the curve of the armhole. So I'm going to bring in my pattern master and I'll place it, making sure that the ruler is touching the armhole, the base of the armhole, and also touching the 2 inches I marked on the neckline. Just take note of the way I'm placing my tape. Can you see? No, sorry, not my tape, my pattern master. So I'm going to now connect the points like this. So just follow the curve. Just watch carefully. You will understand what I am doing. Can you see? So I'm just going to curve in, making sure that it blends into the armhole with the curve. Can you see? It's not different from where the curve of the armhole is. I blended it into it like this. So now this is what our raglan sleeve will look like. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to extend this shoulder slant line. Can you see the way I'm extending it? I'm extending it now because we are making the sleeve. The sleeve is now part of the neckline, meaning that we're not going to have a regular basic sleeve. That's we're not going to have a normal armhole. So that's why I'm extending the line just like this, okay? So, and I'm extending it with about 6 inches on this pattern paper. I'm going to still show us how to do it on our fabric to make it a long sleeve. But at this point, I'm just extending it to 6 inches. Okay. So from the shoulder tip here, I'm going to measure 6 inches. Can you see? On this 6 inches mark I have here, I'm going to enter half of the round arm measurement. A round arm is 14 inches, half of it is 7. So at this slant I have here, I'm going to measure 7 inches downwards. That's to the armhole line. Just take note of the way I'm placing my tape. That's I'm taking it from the shoulder slant and bringing it down to the chest line here. So this is 7 inches here. So can you see that 7 inches is going below the line I drew? So I'm going to curve this raglan neckline, that's the raglan sleeve, to meet that 7 inches. Can you see? So now this is now the new line, not the upper line. That's where it is. So I placed my tape from the shoulder slant and I entered half of the sleeve measurement, which is 7 inches, and then I made sure to blend my line to meet it. And you can see I've squared out the other part, so I just need 6 inches here. Like I earlier said, this is actually going to be a long sleeve. I'll show us how to create it on our fabric. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to extend the upper bust dart legs, you get, because I cannot leave it this way. You need to extend it because we'll be cutting out the raglan sleeve. So you can't just leave this way. You need to extend it to finish on this line. So now this is it. You will not just keep widening your tape and increasing the dart, not tape, sorry. You will not just keep widening the pattern master. I'm going to do it in a way that that same half inch is what I will bring up here like this. Just watch carefully. Can you see how I extended the dart legs? Like this. So I didn't just keep opening it to widen the dart. Okay, you don't want to do too much over the bust so that it doesn't press the over bust. So I'm going, this part I'm marking out are my darts. This is to indicate that that's the part we'll be cutting out. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to enter all the measurements. On the bust line, I'm going to enter quarter of the bust measurement, which is 9.5. Take note that I didn't add any sewing allowance on this pattern. I'll be adding all my sewing allowances on the fabric. Next, I'm going to enter quarter of the underbust measurement, which is 8.5. So I'm going to replace my dart. What I have there is 2 inches. You want to make sure to return your dart. If you don't return it, you're going to have a big shortage. The waist measurement is also 34. Half of 30, quarter of 34, I beg your pardon, is 8.5. And I'm also returning my 2 inches for dart intake. So I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect them like this. Can you see? And this is it. So I'm going to blend it now to meet the armhole like this. So at this point where it looks sharp, I'm just going to blend it in. So now we now have our raglan sleeve and we have our bustier. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark the bust dart, which is the difference between the front and the back. And in this case, it is 2 inches. So from the bust point line here at the side, I'll come down by 2 inches. And then I'll connect it to the nipple to nipple line like this. Can you see? We have our bust dart. Very simple. So now because we're going to close this bust dart, if you close it at the side, the line is going to be, we're going to have a shortage. So I'm going to get the midpoint of this 2 inches, which is 1 inch. And then I'll come out with about 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch like this here at this point. I'm just going to create that triangle that shows that there's a dart so that by the time we close the bust dart, we're not going to have any shortage. So I'll connect it to the under bust line like this, and then I'll also connect it to the armhole line, which is the chest line. So can you see this shape? This is just to indicate that I have a dart here so that by the time we close the dart, we aren't going to have any shortage. So that's that for the front. Okay, so I'll be raising this line I have here, that's at the chest line, because you can see that the raglan sleeve has gone lower than the line. So I'm just going to raise it to avoid any confusion. And you see, okay, I'm done drafting the front pattern. Right now, this is the back pattern. And here, it's a basic bodice, really simple. So just in case you don't know how to draft a basic bodice, I'll be dropping the link in the description box. So here, this basic bodice, I have my zip allowance, a neck width of 2.5 inches, and then a neck depth of ½ inch for the back. And then I already created the armhole. I went in by ½ of an inch, the regular way we do it, everything. I added zip allowance to this pattern. This is in case you want to have zip on yours. Remember, I'm going to be using loop. I'm going to cut this out when we're done. So here on the waistline, I'm marking quarter of the waist measurement plus 1 inch for that. So it's that simple. Okay. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to mark half of the nipple to nipple measurement, placing my tape from the center back line. This is it, 4 inches. I'll repeat the same thing on the waistline. This is for us to draw our dart. So I'll bring in my straight ruler and connect the points like this. Okay. And then next I'm going to mark ½ inch on both sides of the line. This is for our dart intake. Remember, I added 1 inch for the dart. So before doing that, I'm going to come down by ½ inch from the chest line. That's where I will zerize my dart. So I'm marking my ½ inch on both sides, and then I'll connect it to stop ½ inch below the chest line. Okay, so that's it. So can you see? So I'll repeat the same thing on this side. Okay, so now we have our back waist dart. The next thing to do now is to create the raglan sleeve for the back, just like we did for the front. So for the back here, at the neck width, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. Remember that the front I came down by 2 inches. For the back, I'm coming down by 1 inch. You see? So this 1 inch, I'm going to connect this 1 inch to blend into the back armhole. So I'm also going to use my pattern master to achieve this. So you place your curve correctly. Can you see how I'm placing? You want to make sure that it blends into the armhole. You don't want to go below this armhole, neither do you want to go above it, because this will determine the fit of this outfit. Can you see? So now we have done that. So like I did for the front, I'm going to also extend the shoulder slant line. I will extend it also like this. So here we are. And then I'll also extend this one too. But before extending this, I'm just going to measure that 6 inches that I have there. So this is my 6 inches. So from these 6 inches, I'll measure what I have here. That's the upper round arm. So which is 7 inches. Can you see? So I'm measuring 7 inches from my 6 inches I went out by. So I'm going to curve this to meet it so that I don't have to erase that line I erased in front. I hope you understand why I'm doing this. So I'm just entering the measurement so that I can connect directly. Can you see? And then I'll square out my sleeve. So now you can see we also have our raglan sleeve for the back. So I'm labeling this part raglan. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and connect my points, and that's for the back. And then I'll show us how to create the lacing part that we're going to have at the back. So can you see? I'm connecting from the bust to, that's from the waistline to the chest line. So that's it. Okay, so then the next thing I'm going to do now, from this center back, I am going to eliminate zipper bulge first. Yes, we're not going to have zipper bulge, but you need to eliminate this before going ahead to take out the space you're going to use so that you can lace the back. I'm going to be reducing the back measurement so that I can lace the back. You have to have that space at the back to give you that back corset effect. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So from the center back, I went in by half of an inch first to eliminate zipper bulge because our back is smaller than the front. So we take out that one first, which is number one, and then I'll go ahead and determine how much space I want to have at the back. So right now, this slanted line is now the new center back line. I'm going to label it center back line after taking out the zipper bulge. So on the waistline, I'll go in by 1.5 inches. This is the space I want to have at the back of this gown to create the lacing effect. On the chest line, I'll go in by 2 inches. I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect the 2 points. On the waistline, I went in by 1.5 from the new center back line. On the chest line, I went in by 2 inches. Take note that this will reflect on both sides of the back because this is one side of the back, okay? So I'm just indicating that I'm going to have eyelets here at this the point where I have this line. So now this is where my eyelets will be, and then this upper part will serve as a yoke. Can you see I'm labeling it as yoke, and then this is our raglan sleeve. So that 1.5 and 2 inches, I'm going to cut it out because it will be an open space at the back so that we can give the waist that snatched waist effect. So for the back yoke, I'm going to have button loops holding the two sides of the back together, because the other side I'll be cutting out the space I created for my lacing. So for this back yoke, we're going to have buttons holding them together. We will understand better when I finish cutting it out. So right now I'm cutting out my pattern. I just want us to watch this carefully so that we understand what I am doing. So this is my raglan sleeve first I'm cutting out. After cutting out the raglan sleeve, that's the back raglan sleeve, I went ahead to label it back. You don't want to mistakenly interchange it with the front piece. So next I'm going ahead to cut the yoke. So you can see I'm cutting on the chest line. So here now we now have our back yoke. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and cut out this. This is not part of my measurement. So this is now the back yoke. Okay, I'll keep this aside. Can you see what they look like together? Can you see? So then the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out this part I said I'll be cutting out and throwing away because we want to have a space at the back so that we can lace the back. So here I'll cut out following the shape I have here. Okay, so these are now our three back pieces. Can you see what it looks like? So you can see the down one, that's the part that is going to have the lacing, that's the eyelet. You can see how it is inward. There's a space of 2 inches at that point. So I'm going ahead to notch the yoke to indicate where the lower back piece will stop on the yoke. You don't want to mistakenly bring it outwards or take it inwards. It will affect your measurement. So it is very important to notch it so that you know where you start fixing the lower back piece from. Okay, so with that being said, now we'll go ahead and start cutting our front patterns out. So I'm going to set the back patterns aside and then we'll go ahead and cut the front pattern. So as you can see, I've separated the center from the side. So now I'll go ahead to close the bust dart. So I'm going to pick this bust dart line, can you see? And then place it over the bust line. Can you see? Just watch carefully what I'm doing. This is how to close your bust dart. Just fold that line and place it over the bust line. So you can see that the point has shifted. Can you see? And you see how the line has shifted. So that's the essence of that extra 3/4 or 1 inch I came out at the side for, so that when it shifts, you are able to blend it up. So I'm just going to use my pencil and my curved ruler to just blend it up like this. And then I'll cut it out. So is that simple? So I'm going to use my masking tape to tape it down. So the bust that is closed. Can you see? So now the front and back length will now become the same at the sides. This is because the front length I said is already 17.5 inches. The back length is 15.5 inches. So I'll use my masking tape to cover up, that's to close up this bust that. So now I'm going to place my pattern like this. Can you see, placing the center pattern and the side pattern together? Can you see that the side is shorter than the center? So I'll need to make up this part that I have this shortage, that's which is truing it. I'm going to true this pattern. Remember that we're going to sew the center piece and the side piece together. So when you stitch them together, it's going to be short. So you want to make sure you replace it, because if you don't do that, it will mean that you cut it out. And when you cut it out, it will affect your pattern. So I'll need to do this so that everything just blends in nicely. So this is called truing. So I'll cut another piece of paper and place it behind the side piece. I'll use my masking tape to tape it down so that it will not shift. So I'm just going to tape it at the back here. So having taped it down, I'll bring my side piece and the center piece together. Can you see what I'm doing? So I'm going to blend in this highest point. Can you see? Want to blend it into the side armhole, just like this. Can you see? So I'm placing the center and the side together. So this extra paper, you can see where the length stops. That's that 1 inch. Can you see? So now I'm blending it into it like this, and then I'll go ahead and curve it into the armhole. If you watch carefully, you will understand everything I'm doing, since we're seeing what I'm doing. Okay, can you see? So now I've extended the side piece, so I'm not going to have any shortage. My pattern is going to be balanced. So I'm going to now cut out the excess paper I have here, and then I'll also cut it out at the side here. Can you see? So you want to make sure that you always do this. Most times when your neckline is not straight, if you're doing a sweetheart neckline, whatever it is you're doing, most times you're going to have this. So you need to always blend it up so long as the neckline is not straight. So can you see what I have here? So by the time I stitch my patterns together, they will match up. Okay, so now I have my two front piece, the center and the side, and I also have the raglan sleeve. So now this is it. Can you see how the raglan sleeve will sit well? So imagine that there was a shortage. Of course, the raglan sleeve will not be able to sit well and touch this point here. Can you see? So please don't forget to do this. It is very, very, very important. So now we're done with the drafting part and we have cut out our patterns as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out all my fabrics, add the necessary allowances, and then I'll show us how to cut the raglan sleeve because it's going to be a long sleeve. I'll cut the raglan sleeve and then the cold shoulder sleeve. And then in my next video, I'll show us how to stitch all our pieces together. So to cut the raglan sleeve, I'm going to first tape them together so that we can cut a single sleeve. The sleeve is not going to have joining here. It will be one single sleeve and then we'll add our seam allowance to the side. So I'll go ahead and tape it here together. You want to make sure that you place it well. Make sure that this curve is coming out well. So I'll use my paper tape to tape it down like this. So you want to make sure that you place them together like this and tape it properly. So can you see? So now I've taped it down. So I have a single sleeve. So this is what we are trying to achieve. Can you see that at this point, they are both meeting at this point? That's at this point where the armhole ends. They are both meeting. The only place we have a difference is here in front. That's at this side. Because in the front, we came down by 2 inches from the neckline, while at the back, we came down by just 1 inch. So you can see the difference at this side. So I'm going to fold it like this now. I'll bring in the lace fabric I'll be using for the sleeve. So I'm going to fold my lace into two. So I'll bring in the sleeve now. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll place it here, making sure that at this folded part is aligning. So I'm going to remove whatever excess I have and fold properly. So looking at what we have, we can see that the front is wider than the side of the back. So we're going to use this front to achieve our measurement. So I'm going to come here now and add 1/2 inch. You see? I'll add 1/2 inch and then I'll come here and just increase it like this by 1/2 inch. We're going to trim it back to the shape, but we're using the longer ones to achieve what we need to achieve. And then next I'll enter the length of the sleeve. The length of the sleeve I'm working with is 25 inches. So 25 plus 1 inch for the hemming allowance, that will give me 26 inches. So now to enter the length of the sleeve, I'm going to start from this point. This is where the actual shoulder measurement started from, not from here. This is the neckline. So here is the shoulder measurement. So from here, I'm going to measure 26 inches. And this is exactly where it ends, at the end of my fabric. Okay, so at this point I'm going to enter the round wrist measurement of my client, and her round wrist is 7 inches, so half of it is 3.5. So plus 1 inch for my seam allowance. I'm adding just 1 inch for the seam allowance. And then next I'm going to come here again and measure the elbow. From shoulder to elbow is 13 inches. So from this 13 inches, I'm going to enter half of her round elbow measurement, and that is 6 inches. So plus 1 inch, that's 7, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead now and connect it to this side. But before I connect it to this side, I'm also going to add the 1 inch seam allowance like I did for this side. Remember that when we were drafting, we didn't add any seam allowance. So I'll use my chalk to connect the points like this. Can you see? And then I'm going to connect it this way. Can you see? And then to just fall in like this. connect it like this. Can you see? So this is what a long raglan sleeve looks like. So I'm going to cut it out and then I'll show us how to alter it to get the back side. So I've cut out my sleeve. So I'm just going to open it up like this. And then I'm going to place, first you need to get the crease line. Let me do this so that it's very clear. So first to get the crease line, that's your center line. So at this point, I'm just going to mark it. This is the midpoint. So I have the midpoint now, it's showing here. So I'm just going to open it up like this. So this is the point where I have the midpoint so that I know how to place my paper. So now I'm going to open it up like this. So you can choose either side. So whatever you do, remember that this is one side of the sleeve. So whichever side you choose as the front here, you make sure that on the other sleeve is going to be the opposite side. Okay? So I'm going to place it like this now. You see? So at this center, at this midpoint here, I'll place it this way, like this. And then I'm going to trace out this shape that I have here on the neck line. This is the neckline shape, right? I'm going to trace it out like this. So you can see my half-inch seam allowance and my half-inch seam allowance here. Can you see that? Allowance that will join us for joining the sleeve at the side. So this is just basically it. So this is the neckline for the back. This is the side for the back here, and you can see that this is the side for the front. So mere looking at it, you can see that one is shorter than the other. Can you see that the back is now inwards and the front is more outward? So that's just how to cut your raglan sleeve. So I'm going to place this on my fabric and cut the second one. Like I said, make sure that you place right side facing right side so that you get the opposite direction. For the cold shoulder sleeve, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into two. To determine the amount of fabric I'll be using for the cold shoulder sleeve, I'll be using the upper round arm measurement to determine the amount of fabric, which the upper round arm is 14 inches. 14 divided by 2, that will give me 7. So 7, I'm going to add 2 inches to it, so that's 9 inches. Then I'll go ahead and draw the starting line. So this is where my measurement will start from. So from this side that is open here, I'm going to mark 5 inches. I'm going to be pleating this cold shoulder sleeve to 2.5 inches. So 5 inches plus 1 inch for my seam allowance. So that's a total of 6 inches. I'll be using half inch to turn it at the upper part and half inch to turn down. So that means I'll be left with 5 inches, and I'll pleat my 5 inches to 2.5 inches. Then at the folded part here, I'm going to come down by 9 inches. Can you see? At the folded part, I came down by 9 inches. At the open part, I marked 6 inches. I'm going to use my curved ruler to connect them like this. So that's it. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut it out. So as you can see, I've cut the cold shoulder sleeve, and this is what I'm trying to achieve. Can you see how I'm pleating this side and the folded part will drop down? So right now I'm going to cut 3 more pieces of the satin and then 2 pieces of the lace. So we're done with the drafting part and cutting part of this video. I hope you learned something from this video and you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please make sure to like this video, share this video with your friends, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel and make sure you put on your notification bell so you get notified once I upload the sewing video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, and see you in my next video. Bye.